discussion with various business owners, I think Seshadri, the major challenge we see is that the sellers aren't really aware as to what it takes for them to sell their business.
Yeah, that's right, Danish. I think the primary reason is we see a lot of middlemen, CAs, and brokers in the transactions, and they try to promise success, try to leverage on the fact that sellers are unaware of how the transactions work or how the M&A market really works, and therefore before sellers embark on the journey for scouting for buyers, they should really first get prepared as to whether they want to sell the business or not. And a lot of times it happens that where the seller will talk about selling, and finally when it comes to business changing hands, there are a lot of ifs and buts that come in the way and the transaction fails. Uh,
Yeah, that's exactly true. I think the most motivation to sell is so crucial because any of these transactions are it's between it takes between 1 to 3 months to materialize any of these deals. So lots of information is exchanged, lots of questions are asked, and if the seller isn't motivated, he's going to drop out at some point in time, somewhere down the line.
Yeah, that's right. So the second thing, adding to the what we were talking about earlier in the first pointer, is that everyone has to be on the same page in the business. So all the shareholders, they have to agree and stay they are going to sell. And sometimes it also happens that I mean, one of two of them might get cold feet in the last minute because of emotional reasons, etc. So that's why it's important for them to be on the same page. And we have already seen this in the market wherein the
Yeah,
deal was negotiated, price locked, and
yeah,
shareholders just pulled out on the last minute before the
yeah.
DD process.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think same pageology is like so important. But Shashadri, moving forward, when the seller checks the first two boxes, wherein he's motivated to sell, all his shareholders are on the same page, and they're willing to move forward on the transaction. What is the next step? Is it signing the NDA and moving on to the valuation, right?
Yeah, right. So if the seller is really serious to sell, there are no challenges faced, except if he's trying to get rich out of the one transaction.
Yeah, yeah. But most sellers, they want to squeeze as much as money they can out of just selling their business, and I think that's the reason why 99% of transactions in the current market fail. They're listed and everything's there, but they don't end up happening because of unrealistic expectation. Um, but from quantum healthcare standpoint and perspective, what is the information we require in order to, let's say, evaluate a healthcare business?
So for starters, it would be a 2 to 3 year financials, brief information about the management, broad projections, accreditations, as well as a brief about the assets, which is important. And healthcare business is evaluated just like any other business, wherein underlying assets and goodwill are a function of cash flows, including the real estate and whatever assets may be. There is nothing special about the healthcare business in there. So it's just like a regular business.
I think that's very precisely put. Obviously, from a healthcare perspective, obviously, as we move forward, other pointers are important as well as to where the revenues are coming from, whether they're government, insurance based, cash based, and, more importantly, what is the turnaround of these, insurance payments, right?
Yeah, right. And once there is a agreement on broad valuation, next step is just verifying the information that the seller has provided through a due diligence process and zeroing down on a value.
Right. So if I have to just put all of this, distill this into a few pointers. If the seller is motivated, he's willing to sell. The shareholders are on the same page, and they're sharing the requisite information. How much time does it take for us to, let's say, value the business?
So the valuation is a very short exercise. It's somewhere between 1 to 2 weeks, and the due diligence it will itself will take a little bit more time. Usually anywhere between say 4 to 8 weeks, and usually the flow of information from the seller will not be that smooth. So it usually gets extended just because of that. But valuation by itself will only take anywhere between 1 to 2 weeks.
And so, from a due diligence perspective, as you just alluded, does this vary from transaction size to transaction size, or this is pretty much sacrosanct across all transactions?
So it actually varies by the size of the transaction, by the complexity of the facility and the specialties involved in it. And I mean, it also depends on what type of entity we are considering. So a lot of factors are involved uh, in determining the due diligence timeline.